contact. So thank you for attending to that. Okay, has anyone here seen the Gallaudet mission statement? I know that some of you have, some of you haven't. It's a pretty lengthy mission statement, but it is important. When you have time, I would suggest you take a look through it. And there's one term that I want to emphasize right now, and I'll show you that term right here. In the second line, you'll see the word bilingual. And that's in our Gallaudet mission statement. Okay, so now you'll see it right here as well. Bilingual learning environment. Now, let me ask you, why is that important for you? How does that apply to you? Yeah, come up to the front, please. Yeah, it's all right. Come on up. You can do it. All of you have to get used to this. That's how we communicate here, to be able to see each other. Okay? You have the floor.
Well, to learn more about Gallaudet, what the rules are.
Okay, so if you know both languages and then you're able to understand everything at Gallaudet, correct?
Verbal and signed.
Okay, any other thoughts? Thank you, you can have a seat. Come on up. Yippers, come on up. I know that you're shy, but come on up, really. It's completely fine, you're gonna be just fine.
Well, to learn about how to communicate with hard of hearing and deaf people and hearing people.
Exactly, and hearing people. And you're right, you're absolutely right. If I could have your attention, yeah. So we are bilingual here, and that means you are able to communicate with everybody. You don't want to limit yourself to only to be able to communicate with one group of people. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, now here's the problem. We have a bilingual university here, right? And you are not bilingual, right? What do? So we do have an answer for that, not to worry. The big answer is Jumpstart, really. This is where you're gonna get some tools here, and that's reason for you to come here early before the classrooms and learning start, to come here to learn about language and culture and to have that focus. So this is a great first step. We do have more support for you to get you into the semester, so no worries about that as well. So here at Gallaudet, you may notice that you have to, quote unquote, catch up. And we know that you all do have some catching up to do for you to be able to come bilingual users, to be able to be proficient in American Sign Language and spoken English or written English. And we want to talk about the classroom supports that we have to be able to continue that learning. Oh, if you could actually go back to the bicycle. Okay. So here we have in-classroom support. And I'll talk to you about 4 different types of supports, but I do want you to understand this critical part. The best way to learn a language, well, do any of you know what the best way is to learn a particular language?
Immersion.
Right, immerse yourself into the language. Meaning if you want to learn French, you would want to go to Paris, right? You wouldn't actually have an interpreter there. If you would like to learn, I don't know, Spanish, you would maybe go to Latin America. But would there be an interpreter there? No. So sometimes, if you have an interpreter available, it actually might slow down your learning of that language, if you can imagine that. So again, here at Gallaudet University, we are aware and we do understand the best ways of fully immersing yourself. That is the best way to learn the language here. And if you want to take that path, you can choose that path. You can say, I don't want interpreters in the classroom. I want to be fully immersed. If you are comfortable with that. If you're not comfortable with that, then we do have 4 options for you. And these options are more like training wheels on a bicycle, with the goal that eventually you would stop using those training wheels and become, quote unquote, bilingual in the sense that you wouldn't need these particular supports. So eventually, I want to see those supports in a sense, for you not to be so reliant on it as soon as possible, to see those training wheels come off and for you to ride independently. I'm sure that many of you, let me ask, how many of you have experienced working with an interpreter? Okay, we have some hands raised. Can someone tell me the main goal of what an interpreter's job might be, or to have an interpreter? The main goal there of interpreting, or to have an interpreter? Anyone? Any thoughts? Okay, yeah, come on up. Yippers, come on up to the front of the room. You can do it. Yeah, that's fine if you want to stand on the side there, but what's the main goal of having an interpreter?
Communication.
Okay, tell me a little bit more about how communication would happen.
Well, to communicate with the teacher, if you've got a hearing teacher presenting and talking, and you want to ask a question or anything, then you communicate with the interpreter who understands it, and it makes sense to them. And like, for example, if the teacher is using a really big word, then the interpreter will have to sign it in a way that you can understand it. And intelligent, and so that you can become more intelligent.
Okay, all of that is exactly correct. And within this environment that you're talking about, the interpreter is supposed to interpret everything, right? Everything. Isn't that right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, you can go ahead and have a seat. So, one big difference about Gallaudet University is that the interpreter does not interpret everything. Again, because we want to give you all the opportunity to learn. So interpreting and interpreters may look a little different here than maybe what you have experienced in the past. Okay, so of course we do provide interpretation, standard interpreting. The interpreter will listen to the message and put it into sign language, or we'll look at the sign language that is being used and put it into spoken English. So if you're unable to hear, you're at a deaf university, many of you are probably listening or not listening. Many of you can't hear, right? Or unable to hear. So if that's the situation, we will provide CART services or captioning. So there are 2 different types of captioning. One is CART, and that is actually more real-time captioning. And then we have another type, which is called Typewell. And that kind of captioning is more of a summary of the content, and there's a little bit more of a delay with Typewell captioning. And for that reason, we suggest that CART captioning happens mostly within the classrooms. And Typewell could be used with just some of the classrooms, particularly with technical types of material, specifically math. So we'll talk a little bit more about those options in a bit. Now, if you were to pick captioning as a service that you would like to have, I'm sorry. I see a few people falling asleep, and maybe they're just closing their eyes. So I would just like, maybe if you could tap those people and ask them to wake up for me. Hello, over there. Hello. Okay, great. Now, I grew up with deaf people, and so my parents are deaf, my grandparents were deaf, and my great-grandfather was deaf. My aunt, uncles, cousins, and you name it. Our family is very deaf in a sense. So if I don't see your eye contact, it's really hard for me to be able to engage with you and continue my presentation. So I would really appreciate your patience with me in that aspect. Now, if you choose to have captioning services in your classroom, you still will have an interpreter in the classroom as well. The information would all go through the interpreter through the captioner, just as if you're seeing right now in this presentation. And this is CART captioning and not Typewell that is occurring right now. Okay, so we already mentioned the two types of captioning, and now we have two types of delivery. So the first one is what's pretty much occurring right now. There's a big TV screen that has the captioning on the screen, or if you so desire, you can actually bring your own laptop in the classroom with a very small microphone that can be used with the interpreter. So that would be mobile captioning, and you can choose whichever is more comfortable and which one is your preference. If you choose the mobile captioning, there are a few specific requirements, like needing to provide your own laptop and so forth. So,
technical requirements we can tell you in a minute.
And we can tell you a little bit more about those technical requirements at a later time. Like I said, we do have standardized or standard interpreting. But here, the interpreters will actually look for the time to find ways to support your language development. The interpreters may let you navigate and let you be more independent with those decisions.
And they may back off.
And they may back off in a sense. There is a new service that we're developing currently where we will have a deaf interpreter in the classroom. And I hope you all are aware that we do have deaf interpreters within the interpreting field. Are you aware of that? I hope that you all do know about that, because here we do have many deaf interpreters. So we're developing a new service for you to have a deaf interpreter in the classroom. And the interpreter may not be interpreting everything, but they may be there, the deaf interpreter may be there to clarify some maybe cultural information or specific terms. And that service may actually fit people who have some skills with learning the language, American Sign Language. So if you are not fluent or don't have a lot of American Sign Language skills, this service may not be for you. We're hoping to provide those services in January. Right now, we're still developing this part of our services. You have a question? Come on up. Yeah, you can stand there. You don't have to come all the way up to the front.
In high school, I didn't have it all the time. We used C-print in high school, which is kind of different than this CART.
You were saying that's your preferences? You do like C-print?
No, I'm just saying I used that in high school, and it's different than this. Yeah, this is word for word.
Any other questions or comments? Come on up. You can do it. I know. listen, I know you don't really want to come up to